Welcome everyone to our Fireside Chat. Our title is How Space Data Can Change Earthlings' Behavior. And we'll have Michelle Lapinski with me. Michelle is the founding CEO of SustainBiz. She builds world-class sustainability and social impact programs for companies, organizations such as Coca-Cola, Shell, Dow, Starbucks, and now Robinhood. In PagerDuty. She was previously the vice president at Earth Genome, building and bringing people together to use nature-based solutions to address climate crises like drought, flooding, water quality. She has built corporate engagement programs for the Nature Conservancy, including their groundbreaking engagement with Dow to value and invest in nature. She's really been a pioneer in the field of sustainability. She was at Gap Inc. 25 years ago, pioneering environmental health and safety product and supply chain standards and approaches that are now the norm. She's also the board chair of Young Women Social Entrepreneurs. So there couldn't be more points of intersection where we need her expertise to guide us. So Michelle, thank you. And we're so excited to have you share your thoughts and all the behind the scenes nuggets. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. And thank you to Technovation and all of this community. I just got to hear some of the women on the panel before us, and I'm so inspired. I'm glad I'm learning from you as well.
These young women are, really inspire us, right? So Michelle, why did you choose this field of work, and why do you think it's important to work on what you do, and maybe specifically even water scarcity issues?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. I think I've always been passionate, or at least since college, about as I started to understand the connection between human and environmental health. Like if we weren't doing well, it could be something in our environment, and if the environment wasn't doing well, it tended to affect our health. So that's what I studied. And water just seemed the most essential of these. I think I was really drawn to the things that were so connecting, that were really like, we're all one system. Everything we do in our life could have a negative impact on water, and yet we depend on it. So I had a background in science, and I got recruited by the Gap shortly after college, and just was really interested in the role science can play in helping us make different choices, but also the challenges it can present for people trying to understand science and reconcile that with what they want to do. So influencing behavior and applying science in real world were just kind of this perfect merger of my interests.
And your work, it really shows that, and is centered around the use of data, visualization, science, and most importantly, partnerships to make change. And one of the things that I've been so intrigued to learn more about has been the Green Infrastructure Support Tool. So tell us firstly what green infrastructure is, and what was this tool?
Yeah, green infrastructure is a term that can also refer to nature-based solutions, natural infrastructure. Basically, it's all the pieces of nature around us that are helping protect us or provide things that we need, like clean water. So for example, wetlands can protect coastlines when we have big storms, like some of the hurricanes that right now are affecting the US and other parts of the world. They can remove toxins from the water, and they can reduce the impact of flooding. They can act like a sponge and actually hold water when we have big storms. Mangroves protect shorelines, they provide habitat, trees remove carbon dioxide from the air. So we could call all of these like green infrastructure. And when we put them back in, a lot of them have been removed, which is why some of our challenges are so bad. But when we try to rebuild them, restore them, and protect them, the framing nature-based solutions was used to appeal to businesses and governments to say, you're actually investing in nature. It's a solution to the problem you're having. So that's what the tool focuses on. We helped build, I was involved in building this at my last organization, Earth Genome, and that we called the Green Infrastructure Support Tool GIST, the acronym. And it was really about identifying where restoring wetlands, which have all these benefits for habitat and nature and water quality, could help governments and businesses improve water supply in times of drought. So we were trying to solve a problem that was affecting a lot of different stakeholders, business, government, and nature, animals and species. It uses lots of space data. It combines over 40 data sets of publicly available data. So this is something where we took things that were already available from, primarily because we built it originally in the US and now it's being expanded globally, a lot of US government public data sets. But we also worked with a university to do original hydrological science to understand how water actually moved into wetlands and out of wetlands, and to measure how much water could be created if we put in more wetlands. Could they hold the water and then release it in times of drought? That's really what we were trying to figure out. So there's an element of space data plus new science. And then what we found is, to try and reach people, it really helps to see it. You've got to help people understand where they are in a place. So that's where we try to put things in maps and visualize how the solutions could play out. We spent a lot of time actually talking to people to understand how they'd use the tool and what was holding them back. So people said, well, we know that wetlands are supposed to do all this good stuff, but we know they have a cost, and we need to figure out like how big a wetland and how effective will it be. And so we were combining some of this original science and this data and financials for the very first time. So people that may not be scientists, but might have money, like a government or company, could understand, and we could link the science and the other decision-making factors like money. Got to make it tangible for people. So again, like trying to reach people where they are. And one of the things about it being really visual is hopefully you can reach non-technical people who don't have a science background, but this still really matters to them, or they're a decision maker. So that's really where it came from, and what we aim to do with it.
And I love the term green infrastructure. I think the engineer in me kind of immediately can picture tangible resources. Otherwise, I think when you think about trees and air and water and a wetland, it evokes different types of imagery and emotions, and you don't sort of see it as being very beneficial to our material existence. So should I play this video and you can walk us through a little bit?
Sure. So what you're seeing here is the larger map. We're going to hone in. So we piloted this in Texas with a large corporation. And so we're going to take you to that site. This is actually a Dow Chemical site. It's a huge location. This is showing you some of the different space data layers. So you can layer on different pieces of different levels of data. Where are existing wetlands? Where is existing green space? Where are existing cities? Where are water? This is a particular area that we're looking at where they had a reservoir and they had some access to land. And we looked at, what if we added a wetland in this particular spot? What sort of benefits would we see downstream in terms of water flow and species? And you can see, if you just pause it here actually for a second, if you're able to do that, this literally popped up the results in seconds. So we're able to take these 40 data sets and literally this original science where the models are run in the background. And so then the modeling produces the data set, combine all that, and you say, what about a wetland right here? Because we might have this land, and it produces that result in seconds. And you can see the output in the amount of water that might be produced, the cost of that, and other factors that were critical. So you can kind of keep going. But it was the idea that we could do these results really, really quickly for people. So real time, if someone said, well, we don't have $1 million, what if you only had 2 million to work with? Or what if you only had half that size? You can run that scenario again really, really quickly. And hopefully the idea is anyone within this watershed could see the effect of that. A community member that perhaps is working for, maybe it's one of the Technovation women who's working and this and saying, I'm concerned about the community and the water getting to the wetlands or to this community downstream. What if we put a wetland here? And anyone can see the impact of that, any member in the community. We happened to build this. One of the companies involved was Dow, because they were really struggling with the water flow coming downstream and reaching out to the Gulf. There's stormwater rise and climate change affecting salt water coming into the river. This is just an example of some of the different reports where we try to show things in visuals in comparing. So this compared 3 different sites. We tried site A, B, and C. We said, what if we combine site A and B? Let's run those numbers again and instantaneously and get the impacts. And we got hydrological results. So you saw the difference in the water flow. We also got financial results. And then you got this visual result where you could see how things would look differently in the map. So we're really trying to speak to that wide array of audiences. So yeah, thanks for that quick little demo. It kind of goes through quickly how the tool works.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of access to open data in the US, which is awesome. And I think that's a challenge for the Technovation community in different countries. But I also think that provides a tangible goal, right? Like Can we build these data sets using satellite, but adding this ground truth? And it's possible to do. Earlier, we started off the workshop with an awesome tutorial where some of the coding platforms that the Technovation community is already using can be used to bring in public data. So I think this shows us what is possible, and some frameworks, right? Like it's important to have the financial pieces in there so you can talk to corporations. And maybe, I know this is jumping around a little bit, but I think many times the industry partners or industry groups are painted as the bad guys, right? And I've been intrigued, like Coca-Cola has been one of your main clients. I think they were part of the partners. You mentioned Dow as a partner. And many times environmental justice groups are not happy with these corporations. And this is your expertise. So Michelle, what is your advice, right? Like for bringing everybody to the table, and how do you even start a conversation? Because sometimes there's so much negative emotion, especially from young people, right? Because you're like, that approach is bad.
Yeah.
So how do you build bridges?
I think that's really valid. I think you always have to do what you're comfortable with. I have found that I guess one of my interesting gifts is I want to kind of bring everyone together and figure out if we can find a win-win-win to go forward. Not everyone's comfortable doing that. And sometimes we need activists and people really rallying and raising voices and saying, this is not okay. So I think always be true to yourself and do what feels right for you. For me, I found I really love trying to make the business case and understand where people are coming from, because I see businesses and governments as huge potential levers of change. But I also think it's really important to have guidelines and criteria to ensure that people are in it. So the companies that I've worked with, every single time there's a really clear choice, and there's usually something really significant where that corporation is truly committed to a solution. They've felt a real pain point. Coca-Cola was struggling with license to operate, getting kicked out of places that they had sourced and worked for a long time, losing their employee base. Students saying, we don't want your product on our campus. Stranded assets where a factory didn't have water anymore because the area was dry, whether it was a result of their work or not. That was what was happening. And so there was a real pain point and communities felt that same pain. There was this shared pain. And there was this shared opportunity to say, what's going to work better for everyone? So when I see that level of really clear problem and really clear commitment to solution, then I see a company that's going to do something different. And we can spend time to bring all those parties together and listen deeply and have them learn from each other and find some common ground. And then we can work on building a tool that they will actually really use that will help them solve something and do something better. So all of our tools are built for many, many users to make sure that they're community tools, as well as changing perhaps one of the biggest actors that has the leverage to change and can really make that difference, even if often those companies are tiny, but they make a big difference by setting an example and leading the way and funding a solution. So I think it's critical to find your comfort zone, but then if you are comfortable, to see everyone as a potential part of the solution that has a genuine interest in the problem and finding a better way forward. It's better for companies if water's healthy and communities are healthy. It really
Right,
is.
long term. So I think the gist really focuses on, like you said, 40 data sets. And I'm always curious about this, because we humans, we like to show that we're intelligent, we're data driven, we're logical. But the reality is most of our decisions are based on how our emotions sort of guide how we are feeling. And we're terrible at long-term planning, and that's why we have the current climate crisis. So understanding that access to data is just one part of the solution, what would your recommendations be to young people as they sort of face some of these very complex problems, and you are trying to sort of use space data and crowdsource mobile data? What should you pay attention to in your experience? And also, like, did just work? Like, what would you do again, if you knew, like, based on what you know now?
Yeah. I think always be willing to be learning. So I can't emphasize enough the like listening to people who are affected, who live in the communities where you are. And I think that's actually something I've heard across the Technovation community, that there is that strong, strong connection community and that strong listening. But there also needs to be that listening to the other parties that are involved, the government that might have the data. I thought of I just want to go back to actually your point about in the US, we may be data rich. We tried to do a similar project, really understanding the basin and the availability of water and the options for the different industries in Pakistan, in Lahore. And there weren't just these satellite data sets. Like someone locally from actually WWF went out to the offices and copied actual, printed data and tried to pull all that together. So actually there's an opportunity there to build trust. They weren't going to be very trustful of an external company saying, hey, we're really, really trying to solve a water problem for you. Can you share your data? They were like, no. And there's a role that the community, that all of the Technovation community can play in building trust as people who are working locally in their community, who can work locally with government officials, perhaps to make those data sets available, to work with a university and say, what if the university held the data set, or could the government hold it? Can we build this for you so that it's available to everyone? I think that's a huge opportunity to try and take this work internationally. And then that's where I think other development organizations or funders could pick it up and say, there's somebody already starting to do this. How can we give them a lift? Can we give them a platform, cloud space, training, like an organization, whatever it may be, to support that. So that's my hope in terms of how we scale this and make it global. But I think in terms of reaching people, there's so much about understanding where they are. Like we knew that even though people I talked to in companies were really passionate, the bottom line is they needed to know, which investment should I make? And so I need to know what's going to be the most effective, what's going to produce the most water for the which amount of money, like where should we go? And that's true of most people who have a budget. I mean, if you're running an NGO, you have to decide what to do to have the biggest dent in the climate crisis. So I think recognizing that money's part of a decision for people, emotion or connection to cultural significance or community, or how they felt hurt by someone in the past matters. So I think really understanding where people are and then finding a way to meet them and speak their language and acknowledge the past, so that you can move forward.
Yeah, and I think maybe drilling a little bit lower down there, what is your advice to Technovation girls who want to get started? They want to maybe start an organization of their own that protects the local environment while being sustainable and has women at the center of it, right? Like gender plays such a strong role in almost any one of these climate crises. Women are at the forefront of being the people who are affected the most, and they're usually not the decision makers, right? They're not the ones building the technology. And that's what Technovation is really changing. But they're building these infrastructures from the ground up because the support mechanisms don't exist in many of these countries. So what is your advice for young women?
Yeah, first, thank you for even being here. We absolutely need you. We need you. And I think that there's so much, like if you're passionate about a challenge and a problem you're seeing, that can be the greatest driver to change, and just keep feeding that. Take care of yourself so you can keep working on the challenges you see. My one career advice to anyone is follow what you're curious about. So I think I kept seeing this is the problem. Like, why are we hitting another barrier? And then I would change what I was working on to go work on that next thing that got us stuck. And it's kept me interested in the work and passionate and able to stay energized about it, because it can be really hard. And then I just say, like, what I mean, part of what I love what you all are doing is just building up technical capacity around the world. Like we women need the science skills and the financial skills. So can you learn GIS? Can you learn modeling? Can you learn coding? And I think we were going to try and give some resources out about open courses or way to access that. But also, don't ever, I thought of this after we talked, Tara, like, don't ever let that hold you back. Don't ever let anyone tell you, or you ever tell yourself, that if you don't have a technical skill, or you don't know how to code, or you weren't trained in science, or didn't go to school, you still can be the smartest person at what you aim to do, and you don't need training. I got hired really, really young in Gap. I had no textile background. I didn't know about clothing. Yes, I'd studied some science. I was figuring out that I thought we need to listen to people, but I didn't. I just like thought this, nobody had trained me to do this. And someone said to me, I like how you think and you're approaching things. You're listening and you're trying to build solutions. She's like, I can send you to textile school. We can teach you more chemistry. But this, the way you're
Mm.
approaching things and your desire to find solutions, I can't teach that to someone. So just trust yourself that you can find your way and you can learn anything you want to. You can learn it on the job. You can learn it volunteering. You can learn it in your community. You don't need anything formal. Um, just believe that you've got something that you're figuring out and that you'll figure it out and that it'll be such a huge contribution.
And I think that's absolutely right, Michelle, because I mean, today we have so much information online, you can teach yourself everything, but it's more the passion, right? And the dedication and the courage, which these young women have. And I think I want to tell the Technovation community that we are here to support you, right? Like, so reach out to all of us whenever you get stuck, whenever you feel that, okay, this is too hard, we are here to support you. Um, Michelle, thank you so much. I'm very, very glad that you're now part of our community, and
Me too.
we needed that, like that connection, especially to the corporate sector, because they, like you say, are such a key part of the solution. And I think young people need to figure out how can we work closely with these groups as well as with governments to, if you're really going to make a change. Any last things you want to share, Michelle, before we wrap up this chat?
Mm. Don't be afraid that what seems like the greatest problem causer could be the greatest solution
Mm.
causer. Um, and yeah, really just, I believe in you. You can do so much without training, without knowing what you think you don't know. Believe in yourself and go out there and listen. You'll learn from listening and you'll learn from trusting your instinct that you will see the challenges, you'll see the solutions, and you will find ways that no one's thought of before that we need in the world.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.